What is going on, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Back less than 24 hours later as the preseason is complete. And here we are getting ready for September the 5th. We are exactly 13 days away from kickoff. It's going to be an AFC Championship game rematch between the Chiefs and the Ravens. But before that happens, we have the 53-man roster to complete. The deadline for the 53-man roster cuts is Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central Time. So on August the 27th, we will know who will make the Chiefs' initial 53-man roster. Keep in mind, I did say the initial 53-man roster. It's not going to be the complete roster going into the week one game. It could be, but there are always changes that occur. Sometimes you see surprise cuts from other teams, and that is when a lot of other teams will react and make corresponding moves. So again, initial 53-man rosters, I should say, across the league must be submitted by 3:00 Central Time on Tuesday, the 27th. So you will have that. And yeah, that's a nice indication. We're getting closer and closer to football season. Yeah, I'll get you some of you guys' comments. By the way, please, any comments you guys have about what I'm saying, and I know the wide receiver one, that is going to get the most reactions to this. We're not doing a Red Friday live chat tonight because we're doing this podcast instead. So, but I will read a lot of the comments as we go throughout the live stream. So, whatever you guys have on your mind, let me know. And I'll respond as you guys predict along with me who you guys think will make the 53-man roster. I'll also give you my 16 practice squad players. And obviously, we'll look at some of the players that are going to start the season on IR because that is important to note as well. Before we move any forward, I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Folks, football season is here. You guys can get your tickets on SeatGeek. That is where I go for all of my ticketing needs, whether it's concerts, sports, whatever it is. SeatGeek is where I go. You see a green dot next to those ticket prices. That means you're paying a good amount for those tickets. If you see a red dot, that means you're going to be paying too much. So avoid those tickets from those resellers there. And if you're a new SeatGeek customer, you can use my promo code Farzine when you sign up and make your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, purchase your tickets, enter my promo code Farzine, and you'll save $20 off your first purchase. All right. I see a lot of you guys here in the comments. Yeah, a lot of you guys are asking for specific players who I think, and I will answer all of that shortly. You guys are more than welcome to guess along with me. If you guys see anything that you disagree with as I'm talking, let me know, and I'm going to respond to everyone after I release my my whole 53-man roster. Again, I'll go over the 53-man roster. I'll give you my 16 practice squad players, and obviously we got to note certain players that won't be on either list because of injuries. They're going to start the season on reserve. So here we go. Quarterback. I'm sure you guys are sweating bullets wondering who I think is going to make the quarterback for be a quarterback for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, of course. Carson Wentz, pretty obvious there. So I think that, and by the way, let me make one other note here. When it comes to how many players for each position, I am going exactly with what the Chiefs had a year ago this time, going into the 2023 season. So if you guys are wondering, why do you have 2 running backs or 3 wide tight ends, whatever. If you're wondering, why those numbers come up the way they do, it's because I'm going off last year. The only difference is I have one less linebacker, and I'll get to the why that later on. I did add a fullback because Carson Steele. Okay, there's another one. I think that's the perfect time to go into the fullback position. Carson Steele. Yeah, a lot of you guys have been talking about him. You guys are already talking about him in the comments here tonight. Carson Steele had a hell of a preseason, and this is someone who performed very well, and I think a lot of people feel like he is definitely going to fit the mold of this offense and can definitely help the Chiefs in those short yardage situations. Carson Steele scored 2 touchdowns. Both of them were 1-yard touchdowns. Now, he had big runs before that, helping the Chiefs get to those scores. But the reason I'm making a big deal about the short yardage touchdown runs is because in the last 2 years, and I think the Chiefs got a little bit better about it this past year, but still a lot of room to grow in that area. The Chiefs have been really bad at short yardage situations, especially when it comes to trying to run the football. And there are even weird times where, you're in a 3rd and short. I think it was the Miami Dolphins game where they had a 3rd and short opportunity to convert and put the game away, but they didn't. And so they had to punt the football. They were throwing because they were too scared to run the football, given how bad they have been in short yardage situations. In the Super Bowl, when the Chiefs had the ball in overtime, before they had their first down of that drive, they gave the ball to Pacheco, needing, I think it was just a yard or two. And then even Patrick Mahomes was trying to help push Pacheco beyond the first down line and couldn't. So luckily they converted on the next play on a nice 4th down call there. But the Chiefs have got to be better about those situations to try to avoid 4th down. It's not ideal to have to go through all of that, but hey, I guess the drama sometimes is nice as a Chiefs fan. So, for those just joining late, I just started. Patrick Mahomes and Carson Wentz, those are my 2 quarterbacks. Shocker, I know. And then Carson Steele is my fullback. Running back, I have 3 of them. Isaiah Pacheco, obvious. I know a lot of people are not going to like this name. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Number 3 on this list. I struggle with this one because I don't know if this is going to be the guy, but I'm going with Deneric Prince. And I know what a lot of you guys are thinking, well, what about Luis Rees-Zammit? Now, I don't know the exact rule about the whole international player and how that works with the roster spot and all. So I could be wrong on this one. But I don't know. See, part of me thinks that the Chiefs want to keep Deneric Prince, assuming they keep 3 running backs. And again, I'm not including Carson Steele. He's a fullback, not a running back, or at least I think that's how they have him listed. And that's how that's what they want to move forward with is having him at that fullback spot. But I don't know, man. I think the Chiefs want LRZ back on the practice squad, but I think he's going to get claimed. He will get claimed by another team out there. More so for business purposes, but maybe, hey, why not? Let's at least give this guy a try type of thing. So that's why I don't have LRZ on the 53-man roster, nor the practice squad. Tight ends, again, this one's a little obvious. Travis Kelce, your starting tight end. Noah Gray, he's been around for a few years now. He's the backup to Travis Kelce. And then 3rd on the list is Jared Wiley. Again, for those coming in late, if you're wondering, why do I have 3 tight ends and 3 running backs, 2 quarterbacks? I am going exactly with the same amount the Chiefs had last year. It could be different, could be a little different, but I'm just going with what they had last year. The only difference is I have 1 less linebacker and a fullback this year for the 53-man roster. So that's the only thing different from last year's 53-man roster that the Chiefs initially came out with. Wide receivers. Okay, this is where a lot of you guys are probably going to respond and have a lot to say. Hollywood Brown, my number 1 guy. Rashee Rice, 2. Xavier Worthy, 3. I think we all universally agree on those 3 guys right there. I think this is where a lot of people maybe start to have some different answers here. I think a lot of people would agree Justin Watson's making the team at number 4. Mecole Hardman, I think he's staying on the team. I do. I think Mecole Hardman's going to be sticking around. Number 6, I put Nico Remigio. So this gives you just a couple guys left. Justin Ross, Cornell Powell, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. I decided to go with Justin Ross. Yes. So no Sky Moore, no Kadarius Toney, no Cornell Powell. Listen, I know a lot of people keep saying that Sky Moore, and I'll be honest, I actually initially had Sky Moore instead of Nico Remigio, but I don't think that's going to happen. The Chiefs want Nico Remigio, and I don't think they want to let Justin Ross go. I really don't think they want that. What I will say is, I do think that right now, when you look at the wide receiver room, Kadarius Toney, I just don't know really what the point is with him. The Chiefs are not, as far as Sky Moore goes, the Chiefs are not in the business of keeping someone because they're on a rookie deal and it's cheap to keep around. No, I just don't see that. They're in the business of trying to win a 3rd straight Super Bowl. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, if you want to keep a guy, let me put it to you like this. How many times was Sky Moore targeted in this preseason? None. Not one target for Sky Moore. He was on the field. He was playing in the games, but he wasn't targeted once. And this is someone that probably had the most to prove at the wide receiver position. I think Kadarius Toney, he's got a great skill set, but he is a liability. And listen, I know I've been, harsh on Kadarius Toney, and I said this last night after the game. I think Kadarius Toney actually played well in last night's preseason game. Had a couple of catches, helped the Chiefs get a first down. I thought his route running was just fine. If that Chicago defender does not dive and tip that football out of the way, Kadarius Toney has a walk-in touchdown right there. So I think everything Kadarius Toney did yesterday, great. Like if that Kadarius, and again, I want to acknowledge it is Chicago's backups, but if Kadarius Toney plays like that, holds on to the football, doesn't commit stupid penalties on a consistent basis, everyone has a drop. Everyone has a penalty, but consistently letting it happen over and over again, I think that's the issue with Kadarius Toney. So I have Nico Remigio and Justin Ross as my last two wide receivers. Now, again, I'm sure you guys are asking about the practice squad. I see that in the comments right now already. I will address the practice squad after I put out my entire list here. Offensive line. So I have 2 left tackles, 2 left guards, 2 centers, 2 right guards, and 2 right tackles. Do I think that's exactly what's going to happen? I don't really know. Probably not. The Chiefs always kind of have like a little weird, they'll have like 3 left tackles and 1 right tackle, but one of the backup left tackles can play both left and right. One of those weird things. So I just said, hey, why not go 2 apiece? They went into last year with 10 offensive linemen. Left tackle, I got Kingsley Stomataya, Wanya Morris right behind him. It doesn't appear Wanya Morris' injury is anything serious, so I think he's going to make the 53-man roster. Left guard, Joe Thuney and Mike Caliendo. Center, Creed Humphrey and the rookie Hunter Norzad. Right guard, Trey Smith, and then another rookie who the Chiefs drafted this year, C.J. Hansen. And then on the right side, Juwan Taylor and Lucas Niang. If the Chiefs do keep 10 offensive linemen, I would be surprised if there's someone else in substitution of those 10, assuming there's no injury to Wanya Morris, no serious injury, that is. Maybe I could see Mike Caliendo out for someone else, but I'd be a little surprised if we had a different set of 10 than what I just gave you guys. So that's my offense. I have 26 players on the offense there. Let's go to the defense now. Go to the other side of the ball. Defensive end, let's start up front with the defensive line. The edge rushers, I have George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Malik Herring, and Truman Jones. So those are the guys who I have on the defensive line there, defensive end specifically. Obviously, no BJ Thompson. He's on the NFI list, so he may start the season on reserve. Another obvious omission right there is Charles Omenihu, who's listed on the PUP right now, so he's likely going to start the season on reserve. But given, the things that he's saying, he seems pretty confident with his recovery. Now, what else is he going to say? But that is the way I have it on the depth chart. I think once Omenihu returns, and hopefully he makes a full recovery sooner rather than later, I think he does take, Malik Herring or Truman Jones' spot. And boy, he's going to be a very important part of this team. In the meantime, FAU's got to step up. You were a first-round draft pick last year. You didn't really play a whole lot, and in the time you did play, there were some flashes. But he's going to have a lot more playing time this year with Charles Omenihu not going to be available for the first however many games. We don't know exactly what. So hopefully he comes back as soon as possible. Defensive tackle, obvious number 1, Chris Jones right there, Treshawn Wharton, Mike Pennell, who I'm really excited to see come back, and Neil Farrell, who the Chiefs traded for last year from the Raiders. Derek Noddy, again, on the PUP, so going to start the season that way, and eventually will make his way back to the starting lineup once he makes a full recovery. Linebacker, this is the one I mentioned. So as far as the exact number of players for each position group, I kept it the same except for linebacker. I took one linebacker out and I put a fullback in Carson Steele. The reason I subtracted a linebacker is because the Chiefs, they run the nickel and dime package more than any team in the NFL defensively. Spags does that a lot. So I think when you look at the Chiefs and what they're going to do, and they're going to have a lot of defensive backs, and I'll get to those shortly. So I think it makes sense to have one less linebacker. That way, you can continue to use more defensive backs in nickel and dime packages and not feel like, the number 6 linebacker is occupying a roster spot that he shouldn't be. So with that said, the 5 linebackers I have: Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, Leo Chanel, who I'm really excited for, given that he's going to take Willie Gay's spot, and I think he's going to do some good things. Jack Cochran and Cole Christensen, who I think are going to be good depth players for the linebacker position this year. Cornerback, this is another interesting one with L'Jarius Sneed moving on. Number 1, the obvious Trent McDuffie. Number 2, I have Josh Williams, and again, this might be different on the depth chart, but in terms of the players who I think they're keeping, Jalen Watson at number 3. I have Nazeeh Johnson at 4. Obviously, these are all 4 guys who the Chiefs drafted in 2022. Number 5, Shamari Connor, making that transition from safety to cornerback. And then number 6, I have Nick Jones, who the Chiefs drafted last year, if I recall correctly. Last year in the 7th round. One obvious omission I have right there is Kamal Hadden. I think the number 6 spot is going to be between Kamal Hadden and Nick Jones. So if it's not Nick Jones, I would guess it's going to be Kamal Hadden. That's my prediction there. But I went with Nick Jones because I didn't think Hadden looked good in the preseason games that we got to see. For the safety position, Justin Reed in his 3rd year with the Chiefs. Brian Cook coming back from his knee injury against the Packers. And then you have Jaden Hicks, the rookie, who I thought had a really good preseason. In fact, I think he was the best defensive player for the Chiefs this preseason. And then Deion Bush, who's been around for a couple of years now. I think the same amount of time as Justin Reed. I think they signed right around the same time. So there you have it. Now we are at 50 players. So I have 26 offensive players and 24 defensive players. You do the simple math, you get 50. That means we have 3 special teams guys left. Obviously, Harrison Butker, going with him as a kicker, Matt Araiza, the punter. Long snapper, I went with James Winchester because I read a report from CBSSports.com that Winchester is expected to be available for the week 1 game against the Baltimore Ravens. So my prediction, I've got James Winchester being the guy for the initial 53. If he's not available, then the K-State rookie, Randon Plattner, he'll take Winchester's spot until Winchester is ready to come back. As far as kick returners go, and obviously, these are guys whose names you've already heard. But for kick returner 1 through 3, I have Nico Remigio, Xavier Worthy, and Mecole Hardman. And for the punt returners, I have Xavier Worthy, Mecole Hardman, and Nico Remigio in that order. So same 3 players, just different orders. In fact, going the opposite direction. Practice squad guys. Here are my 16 practice squad players. I have Chris Oladokun at quarterback, running back Keontae Ingram. I thought Keontae Ingram actually looked good in last night's game, and I think that might allow him to stick around if he doesn't get claimed by another team. Tight end Baylor Cup. I have 2 wide receivers here. One is Cornell Powell, who looked very good in this preseason for the Chiefs. Another wide receiver I have is Montrell Washington. Montrell Washington is a very fast football player. And God forbid, hopefully, knock on wood, if, hopefully there's no injury bug, but if that happens, Montrell Washington is someone that I think the Chiefs might call up and use a lot of. His speed certainly fits the mold that Andy Reid wants in an offense. Number 6, I do have offensive tackle Chuck Godric, guard Griffin McDowell, Truman Jones, and Carney Owen as your defensive ends. I do have Matt Dickerson, who I thought looked good in the preseason. He is listed as one of the defensive tackles. I have just one linebacker here, and that's Swayze Bowman, the rookie. And then for safety, I've got 2 safeties, Tyree Gillespie and DJ Miller. I do have the Chiefs' 6th round pick, Kamal Hadden, as a practice squad player. And I have another quarterback, former Kansas State product, Iko Boy Doe, listed on here. And then number 16, another Kansas State name, Randon Plattner. I think the Chiefs are going to have Randon Plattner stick around in case Winchester has a re-injury there, you definitely want that guy to be nearby in case something happens there. So that is my 53-man roster prediction. I did mention a few guys. Obviously, I think Hollywood Brown, his injury is not expected to be anything long-term, so they'll have him on the 53, but likely going to be inactive. The closer and closer we get to September the 5th, the more reports come out that Hollywood Brown is not expected to be available for the week 1 game against the Ravens, which sucks because that's his former team and he was looking forward to that. Obviously, it was going to be a big story going into that game, but unfortunately, he's going to have to go up against his team another time. Hopefully, he comes back to Kansas City long term because I think the Chiefs certainly could use him long term alongside Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, 2 young guys that you've got on the team. So Hollywood Brown, I don't think is going to start the season on reserve. In fact, I don't really see a lot of offensive guys, or any for that matter, who could start the season on IR. I'm just looking around right now. Yeah, I mean, maybe Wanya Morris, but the reports were that his injury is not too serious. I kind of wonder if the Chiefs do it with Louis Rees-Zammit. I mean, I don't think they can. He's got a back injury he's currently got, so maybe they could use that and say, wink, wink, yep, we're putting him on IR, and then elevate him to the 53 later on, something along those lines. But yeah, BJ Thompson, Charles Omenihu, and Derek Nottie are really the only 3 guys. I would have put them on the 53-man roster if it wasn't for their injuries. But I do think that those 3 will start the season on reserve. And then James Winchester doesn't sound like his injury is going to be anything serious or long-term, so he's probably expected to be part of the 53. So that is my 53-man roster. We will get the 53-man roster Tuesday, 3:00 Central Time. We will have a lot of questions. And keep in mind, when that comes out, that's just the initial 53-man roster. Things can change after, and maybe things stay the same. We don't know, but that's just something to be aware of. Antoinette says, from what I am reading, Sky Moore is going nowhere, and I don't know why. Yeah, my thing is, this guy did not have any targets this preseason. Like, if there was a receiver that I really needed to see something from, was definitely Sky Moore. I mean, he had probably the most to prove this preseason. Am I wrong here? Him and Kadarius Toney, for sure. Kadarius Toney actually was able to do something. He had some good moments and some bad moments, but Sky Moore had no moments, which, in a weird way, I guess that's a little better and kind of gives him the edge over KT. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Jacob says maybe pick up a better third string QB. Here's my thing. Because the Chiefs let Shane Buechele go, and a lot of people were surprised. Why is Shane Buechele going? I mean, listen, we don't really know much about the guy other than, he and his wife are very close to Patrick and Brittany Mahomes, but I think the Chiefs usually know what they're doing with this kind of thing. Shane Buechele did not have a good preseason with the Buffalo Bills. Not to say Chris Oladokun did, but he looked really good a couple weeks ago, or last week rather, and then this past week looked bad. Whereas Ian Book looked bad last week and looked much better last night. So who do the Chiefs go with? My guess is going to be Oladokun, simply because when he looked good, he was able to do it against players that are likely to make a 53-man roster. But he did look bad against some guys who are expected to be cut. So there is that weird little mix there. Yeah, Steele, 100%. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. Jim says, love Steele. That would scare defenses with Pacheco and Steele together. Yeah, I'm excited to see what that unit is going to do. Let's see here. Rochelle said third downs can be a problem. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you gotta be. I mean, third and short, it's like, and I don't mind if you want to throw on third and short to throw off a defense, but just make it right. That's what I want to see. Timothy says Pop, Steele, Prince, and Zamet on the practice squad. Oh, Zamet. For a second, I thought you would have all 4 on the practice squad. I was a little confused. Okay, I get what you're saying. You're saying Zamet's gonna. So that would mean no team claims Reese Zomet from waivers. Well, a lot of people really excited about Steele. Timothy mentions Justin Ross. Yeah, he's had a good preseason. Last year, definitely better preseason, but we don't want preseason legends. We want to see good things in the preseason, but, carry that over. Powell will make the team for special teams and backup wide receiver. Okay. Yeah, I could see that for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It's just tough when you look at who the Chiefs have. The number 6 is, I feel like the first 5. Do we all agree on the first 5? Hollywood, Worthy, Rice, Hardman, and Watson. I feel like every Chiefs fan agrees with those 5 guys. And I'm not talking about the burger place either. So who are the last 2 guys going to be? Tony and Moore, Remigio, Ross, Powell. Those 5 guys are battling for those last 2 spots, I think. I'm going to miss Snead, but not as dumb penalties or anger issues. I don't think he had anger issues, but yeah, he certainly committed a lot of penalties for sure. Jaden Hicks made quite the impression this preseason. Yeah, I agree. Look, the hard hitting that he brings to the table for a defense, Spags, screen record this. Spags is going to use Jaden Hicks for a lot of DB blitzes and nickel and dime packages. 100%. 100% going to do it. Out of your 53-man team, if another team drops a player, would the Chiefs be looking for a replacement for any of our position? I mean, that's really hard to answer, Robert, because you're asking about 31 other teams and the 30 or so players that they're going to cut. So again, it just depends. Listen, I'm just picking a random team. Let's say the Washington Commanders, and all of their scouting and film study that they've been doing. When they look across the league, maybe one of their scouts absolutely fell in love with Chris Oladokun, for example. And if they see Chris Oladokun did not make the 53-man roster, then they might grab him because they might actually be surprised to see that he's available. I'm just giving you guys a hypothetical here. So in those kinds of situations, you just don't know. A surprise release or a surprise cut is labeled as a surprise for a reason, because you don't expect it. And if someone is surprisingly let go, then you've got to make a corresponding move with your initial 53 and let someone else go who you just told made the team. I can't remember who it was, but there was a Dallas Cowboys player who tweeted that he made the team, and exactly 24 hours later, he announced that he got cut from the team. And I'm like, dude, that's brutal. Because a lot of these young guys, especially the undrafted guys, when they are told that they make the team, the first thing they do is they call their families. And then, kind of like you're alluding to, Robert, there's a surprise cut elsewhere. Then it's like, oh, not too fast. Sky Moore can't get open. Sky is falling more. John says, oh boy. All these, Aaron says sky is the limit, and his limit is Sky. Gee, 3 comments in a row with Sky puns. I like it. You guys are awesome. This is why I love you guys. Ross needs to stay out of trouble, and so does Rice. And yeah, that's for sure, Bob. Aaron says last 2 should be Ross and Remigio. Yeah, that's where I'm leaning, but I don't know, man. Because the Chiefs have some interesting guys. Here's the thing with the Chiefs receivers. Like, forget about last year and the drops and all that shit. Okay, you've got 3 very good wide receivers in Hollywood, Rice, and Worthy. Hollywood and Worthy are very fast. We know that. Hardman's very fast. Justin Watson's got some speed in him. Rice has got some good speed, not as fast as if we had a 5-man race between Brown, Rice, Worthy, Watson, and Hardman, Rice probably comes in last, right behind Watson, but he does a lot of other things that a lot of people just don't notice. Things that don't show up on a stat sheet. The stutter step he does to throw off cornerbacks. I mean, it's maybe the best I've seen since Dwayne Bowe. And I remember doing a podcast last season, and I asked you guys, I can't remember if it was a podcast or a Red Friday live chat. I think it was a Red Friday live chat. And I asked you guys, who does Rashee Rice remind you of in Chiefs history among past wide receivers? And a lot of people said Dwayne Bowe. And I was kind of surprised how everyone was in unison just came with the same answer. Dwayne Bowe did a lot of that during his time in Kansas City, where, he would make a fake step in one direction, and then as soon as the quarterback would bite the bait, he would go in the other direction, and that allowed him to get open at times. So Rice really does remind me a lot of Bowe in that manner, where, and again, Dwayne Bowe, not the fastest wide receiver in the world. Speed was not a big strength of his, but he did well in a lot of other areas that allowed him to excel. And the drops were an issue, but he made up for it with his production at times. So that's the way I see it with Rice. He's got to work on the fumbles, though. And let me just pull up the exact number, because I don't want to say that and not have that number in front of me. But he had a lot in the season. Let's see. He had a fumble in the AFC Championship game. He had a fumble in the Baltimore game. I don't recall the fumble in the Baltimore game. I don't recall that one. So he had 2 in the playoffs, and he had 2 in the regular season. I could have sworn he had more than 2. I mean, maybe the drops also, but ESPN doesn't have the drops listed on here. The one fumble I recall the most from him was in Buffalo, against Buffalo in Kansas City, because the Chiefs, obviously that game is heavily remembered for Kadarius Toney being offside, but man, if Rice doesn't fumble in the second half, that drive the Chiefs were on, if I recall correctly, and again, take it for what it's worth, because I was in Mexico having too many drinks when that game was going on. That was the Chiefs' best drive of the game. It just ended in a turnover. And they, if Rice doesn't fumble there, I think the Chiefs, they were getting into a rhythm, and that would have led to a touchdown, I think. So I don't know. Hopefully he's better about the ball security this year. And again, I don't want to pick on him, because he was not the only liability when it came to taking care of the football. Everyone across the wide receiver room had drops last year. And then even guys who were wide receivers, but they were lining up as punt returners, like Mecole Hardman and Montrell Washington, they also would fumble. And it's just like, why? It was just frustrating. The entire wide receiver room was guilty of drops and fumbles throughout the season. And it was just weird. And I've said this many times, even Justin Ross, who didn't play much last year, he had 2 drops in one game. I think it was the Minnesota Vikings game. It's like, man, even the guys who are barely playing are dropping the football. So, just be better about ball security. And I remember when this was an issue with Dwayne Bowe, what were people saying? Is he getting too excited about the pass coming his way? Is he focused more on the defenders around him? Is he thinking about the yards after the catch as the ball's being thrown at him? Because it's really a mental thing. And I remember we talked about this with JJ Burton when he was here on the podcast. I remember the Chiefs, I think it was Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He filmed one of the drills in practice that they were doing, where they had those I don't know what they call them, those padded bulky things that they basically, you see them in like carnival events, or if the school does like a little event and they'll have some students take part in that kind of thing. You see them in like jungle gym sometimes. They'll basically try to hit them right in the hand as the ball is going their way. Of course, after they catch it, because before that, that'd be pass interference. So and even then, I remember seeing like drops in that one from MVS. So I don't know. And again, you look at MVS, he goes over to Buffalo and he had a big drop in that preseason, one of their preseason games, and wasn't really doing well for them to begin with. So if the Chiefs, if the drops were not an issue, boy, that season would have gone a lot better than expected, than it went, I should say. Yeah, I think you definitely. Let me just pull up the Chiefs schedule last year, because if you don't have those drops excessively, there are some games that you win. Definitely the week 1 game, Kadarius Toney had 3 drops in that one. One of them off his hands for a pick 6, and then one late in the game where Mahomes, on the first play, I think, of the drive, had him in Detroit territory, but he dropped it, and you lost that game by 1 point. So you definitely win that game. The Denver one, I mean, Sky Moore, yeah, I know the defender was pulling his hand, but he got it back in time to try to make that catch. And then the 5 turnovers, on special teams. MVS fumbled once on a reception he had. That certainly never helps your case, especially when you were sort of getting into a rhythm, the little amount you had in that game. Philadelphia, I mean, I think a lot of people would agree the Chiefs would have won that game if MVS catches the ball. Green Bay, I don't really recall the Green Bay game where there were a lot of drops. The Buffalo one, okay, maybe. That Las Vegas one, the offense just couldn't get into a rhythm. And I think a big part of it was Mahomes was just too scared or too nervous to throw in certain places because he didn't have the confidence in his wide receivers in that game. So if the Chiefs are better about that, I think they win the Detroit game, the Philadelphia game, and possibly the Raiders game on Christmas. So that would have given you 3 losses and possibly the number 1 seed. So yeah, those excessive drops made a difference in 3 games, I would say. True, Rice and the others need to get that right. William says, yeah, gotta be better about it. Jacob agreeing with me, the Broncos game, yeah, possibly you win that one too. Because again, 5 turnovers, that's you don't win any games committing 5 turnovers. That's just too difficult to do. Yeah, I mean, that's the Raiders Christmas, or the Raiders Super Bowl, I should say, because they haven't won a playoff game in 21 years. The Raiders playoff drought is old enough to legally have alcohol. I mean, that's how long it's been for the Raiders. Okay. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and end it right there. You guys get the idea. I think we've gone over the wide receivers quite a lot. Honestly, I am tired. We have beaten the hell out of the wide receiver room this offseason. And the next time we see these guys play, it'll be for real. I know there are some games going on right now. So hopefully the Chiefs figure it out, because we're going from speculating the wide receiver room to now hopefully talking about how good they're going to look in week 1 and in week 2 and so on, because they definitely need that, especially with the schedule they have. Yeah, it's a tough schedule, and they're playing on all these different days. The different days of the week doesn't bother me. I actually think it's kind of cool. And I think players would like to kind of be, rapid and go, and it kind of feels like you're on the go. So I think the players would actually kind of welcome that. Maybe the prep part not as exciting. You don't have as much time, but hey, man, football players are always willing to go out there and just put on the pads and helmet and go play some football. 100%. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen this year. Nothing should ever be easy about getting a 3-peat. Nothing. Of course, it's going to be difficult. Belichick was saying this. He says that he thinks if anyone can do it, it's certainly going to be Kansas City. But then he said it won't be easy. Yeah, of course not. There's nothing easy about winning 1 Super Bowl. I mean, look at Buffalo. They went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. There's nothing easy about going to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. Let me put it to you like this. Look at the Chiefs. They have been the AFC representatives 4 of the last 5 years. When was the last time you heard that? I mean, was there a stretch where New England was in the Super Bowl 4 of 5 seasons? Within 5 seasons? I can't recall that exactly. I know they won 3 Super Bowls in the span of 4 years, and the 1 year they didn't win it, they didn't even make the playoffs, and that was very early in the dynasty run for the Patriots. Obviously, early in Brady's career. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing easy about three-peating, let alone winning 1 Super Bowl. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough season for the Chiefs, but if they can, mentally focus and not have the drops and not have those penalties, and those 2 were an issue last year, they're going to win more games this year. And I do see them winning more games this year. I do see them being better about it. I think last year was a learning lesson, and fortunately, it was a learning lesson with the Lombardi in your hands. I mean, that doesn't happen often. So hopefully they can be better about that this year. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Hey, thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. If you guys haven't done so already, share the links. Let a friend know about the podcast. For all of you who watched on Facebook and YouTube, appreciate you guys again. But one quick note before I get out of here, nothing 100% confirmed. I will say this: the ball is at the 1 yard line. I've got it at the 1 yard line. We have a very special guest that I have almost lined up. I hope this comes through. I don't want to say who it is. I don't know exactly when we're going to have the guest, but we are very close to finalizing a time and date for that. So be on the lookout for that next week. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, I'm Farzin Vousoughian. I'm out. Have a great weekend. Take care.